Good morning, everybody. Lee Brower here, and welcome to this week's edition of Meaningful Monday. I am so grateful to be here and so glad to be here. You know, every Monday I get the opportunity to share what's top of mind for me. And what's top of mind this week is Joe Palucci. Joe Palucci passed away a little over a week ago. And Lori and I were grateful and honored to be able to attend his celebration of life this last Saturday in Dallas. To be with his wife Doreen, his son Michael, and literally a whole room full of people there to share their appreciation for Joe. You know, I've often said that legacy is not what you leave. Legacy is what you live. And Joe lived every second of his life. And every second of his life was full of stories, as evidenced by the stories that were shared there that day. And I'm sure there's hundreds more. But every story had a lesson embedded in it. Every story has a principle embedded in it. And as they go through, we talked about how can we capture some of those stories, identify the principle, and then it'll become a great teaching. If you can identify a story and use one word to name it, then it's going to become a great teaching vehicle, not only for this generation, but for future generations. A true legacy that impacts and influences people to become better decision makers. You know, Sean McGrath stood up. Sean is his heir apparent to his company, somebody that Joe has groomed carefully. And humbly, he shared several of the things that he learned from Joe. Each embedded with each one of those things was a story. Now, I didn't write them down, so I'm going to speak a little bit from memory. But I remember he said, be a good person. And Joe was a good person no matter what. Those that know him know he was a good person. Another one is integrity is always there, and it always comes first. And I like the one, take care of your people, your family, your team, your clients. And I especially like the one that said, it's okay to be a fan of professional wrestling. But he was passionate about certain things and he wasn't afraid to say it. But there was more than one story. Life is a marathon, not a sprint. He told me to read good books. But the one that stood out more than anything else, as people got up and grabbed the microphone, and as I got to talk with them privately, was the power of gratitude. I would have to say that we sent Joe more gratitude rocks than any other person or company on the planet, I think. Every one of them, every one of his friends, every one of his clients, had a gratitude rock. They carried gratitude rocks, and they remember him for how grateful he was and how he taught gratitude with everyone. You know, Joe dictated the terms of his life. Another thing that he always said was, life is correct. And so when life is correct, you know, this life is correct. That guided his way that he responded to everything. Not reacted, but responded to the things that happened in his life with gratitude. You know, instead of life dictating its terms, each of us is choosing what gets to be remembered, what matters, and what will be attainable for future generations. And that comes from the stories and the stories that are told. So I'm just grateful that I had the opportunity to learn from Joe. I'm grateful for his wife, Doreen, for her influence and how that whole family is continuing to influence so many others. You know, life is truly all about gratitude. Thank you, Joe. Thank you for this weekend. Your legacy are your stories, and they will continue to outlive all of us. Thank you, everybody. I hope this is helpful to you today. Let's chat next week, shall we? Thank you for this time. Bye-bye.